Well, I'll start. My name is Randi Priluck. I am the Associate Dean here for undergraduate programs in the Lubin School of Business. Some of you, I think, might have seen me last Thursday at another such event. But today, I am very pleased to introduce Joe Kenner, President and CEO of Greyston. For 38 years, Grayston has opened its doors to people who ordinarily face rejection. When people say they want to work, they give them a chance. No questions asked, no resumes, no interviews, and no background checks. Grayston's programs address some of the fundamental issues of poverty faced in our community. Through job readiness, life skills training, and employment, the company empowers individuals to pursue a career path that will help them find full-time employment and offer them opportunities for advancement. Joe joined Grayston in 2018. His innovative leadership experience and ability to collaborate with diverse stakeholders ensures that they deliver the best services to Southwest Yonkers. Joe began his career as an underwriter for Chubb Son, and then moved into insurance risk management as an analyst for Lehman Brothers. He then worked with Pepsi for 9 years in a number of different roles, including treasury manager and sales strategy manager. In 2010, Joe fulfilled his desire to have an impact on public policy affecting the country's most disadvantaged and joined Westchester County as Senior Advisor of Government Operations. In 2014, Joe was appointed to Deputy Commissioner in the county's Department of Social Services, which had an operating budget of $600 million. He also has the distinction of being the first African-American elected as a village trustee in his community of Portchester, where he served as deputy mayor from 2011 to 2012. Joe is a graduate of Williams College and also attended Oxford University Exeter College in Oxford, England. He holds an MBA in financial management from Pace University's Lubin School of Business. I'd now like to turn it over to Joe to say hello and introduce himself further.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to be here, and thank you so much for bringing me back to Pace. It's been quite a long time since I was a student there, but it's just a privilege to be with you. And thank you, Randi, for the introduction. I got exhausted as you read that, thinking about my career, but thank you so much, and it's just a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with you all. As Randi said, I'm the president CEO of Grayston, and I'll just give a little background on Grayston. Randi, we can get into questions. Grayston is what we call a hybrid social enterprise here in Southwest Yonkers. And what that means essentially is we have both a for-profit and a nonprofit arm. So our for-profit is Greyston Bakery. So if any of you have ever had a pint of Ben & Jerry's chocolate fudge brownie or half-baked or brownie batter core or Justice Remix or Netflix and chilled, you have had a Grayston product, because those are our brownies and those ice creams. And we also sell the single-serve brownies at Whole Foods. And we have some other products with other ice cream makers like Van Leeuwen, and we're working on some other projects that I hope to announce in the next year. But those are our products as of now. So the lion's share of our business comes from the Ben & Jerry's, the Unilever product, which is, we're part of their global supply chain. So this pandemic has been quite the tailwind for us, as folks have been ordering ice cream and all of their groceries online and pickups at Whole Foods and other places. So it's been, in spite of the tragedy of the pandemic, it's been quite a boon for us from a business perspective. But the bakery is also New York State's first B Corporation. So we became a B Corp in 2012. And essentially what that means for the folks that don't know is that we have a triple bottom line. So we're governed based off of people, our impact of the community and society, and we can get into that. We're also evaluated on our environmental impact as well as financial, which is the obvious one, being a for-profit. But the bakery is owned by Greyston Foundation, which is a not-for-profit entity. So that's where I'm sitting right now. The nonprofit has a host of different hard skills and soft skills trainings that we provide to the community here in Southwest Yonkers. And just for you folks, I don't know if we have any data geeks like me, but if you don't know Southwest Yonkers, so we have an unemployment rate as of last month that was about 19.4%, or it's probably even higher if you look at it by census tract. But it's a pretty economically challenged area. So the unemployment's high. You know, there are a host of health inequities. At one point, we were ground zero for COVID, particularly the zip code that the bakery sits in, the 701 area code. I'm in the 703 right now, but we were ground zero for Westchester County when it came to the height of the COVID pandemic. So there's a lot of challenges here that we suffer from in Southwest Yonkers. So Grayston came about because of where we are now in society with the pandemic that exposes a lot of inequities, a lot of challenges that we're facing as Americans and just people in general, humanity, I would say. We were founded by a Zen Buddhist monk turned entrepreneur. He spent the time as an aeronautical engineer. He's just as crazy as I am because he was just all over the place, but he was a serial entrepreneur. But he was also motivated by his faith, if you will. And it was really his faith in humanity and what he saw, particularly at the time in 1982, which is when we were founded, is that there were a lot of homeless people on the streets. At that time, there was really no answer to the AIDS crisis. So he would literally pull people off the streets that weren't working, would ask them, if they want to work. They can help him support his Zen Buddhist community in the Riverdale section of Bronx. And at that time, they were baking cakes. And literally, that's how our whole model got started, was Bernie Glassman pulling people off the streets and kind of providing employment opportunities to folks who needed it. And that evolved over time. We went from cakes to cookies to brownies, which is where we are now. So if you go to Greyston.org, you can now see the different products that we provide to folks that just want to order brownies online, but you can also see the story. We can get into that later, Randy. But that's really Grayston in a nutshell. It was started because of inequities. It was started because, as Bernie believed, and I spoke to his widower a few weeks ago and really asked her, if you had to describe Bernie in one word and why he wanted to open up Grayston, what would it be? And she just said, one body. And that's what Bernie believes is, when we see folks who are homeless, when we see folks who are left out of society for one reason or another, the whole body suffers. All of society suffers when we're not all being used to our full potential. So all of you that I'm seeing on 24 of you that I'm seeing online now, if society is not benefiting from your unique gifts, that's a loss to us. And Bernie felt that, it's a loss when we have homelessness and we have people that actually want to work and can't because of being formerly incarcerated or they're dealing with recovery issues or whatever. That's a loss for all. So that's why Grayston was founded. And so I'm just so happy to be here. It's been a circuitous route to get here, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. So I'm going to pause there, Randy. And
it's a wonderfully moving story, and I'm happy to hear it. So from your perspective, how did you end up yourself at Grayston? And then what are some of the things that you do on a typical day in managing this operation, which sounds pretty complicated?
Yeah, see, I laughed when you said typical day. But I ended up at Grayston, again, circuitous route. At the time, I was the Deputy Commissioner of Social Services, handling employment, SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, and a host of other public assistance programs. I met a woman who used to work here. She actually passed away not too long ago, but I met her at a workforce investment board meeting that the county was having, and she told me about Grayston, and I just didn't believe what she was telling me when she said, if you want to be a baker, all you have to do is put your name on a list at this bakery, and when the next job becomes available, you get it. No questions asked, no background checks, no interviews, you just show up. That just didn't ring true. I came from a corporate background and a Wall Street background, and being at Pepsi and Lehman Brothers. I just couldn't believe it until I came here and actually saw the bakery operations, and to see, nearly 40 years they've been doing this. And actually supplying product, world-class product, I'd say, to folks like Ben & Jerry's, Unilever, and Whole Foods. I mean, these are hardcore, quality-oriented companies, and the people that are making those products were once deemed unemployable. So I didn't believe it. So I spent some time, that was probably 2015, 2016 that I came here. The following year, I invited the CEO, my predecessor actually, to bring some of his workforce development folks to speak at a conference that I used to organize. And while we were talking about having them participate, he mentioned to me that he has an opening for a VP of programs and partnerships. I had no idea what that even was. I looked it up and saw the job description, and they were looking for someone with financial background, social services background, business background, connections to the government. And I showed it to my wife, and she was like, "Oh my God, you could do this." I was like, "Yeah, damn right I could do this." And I literally called Mike Brady, who was the CEO at the time. I said, "You know what? I found your person. I think I'm it." And the rest is history. I joined February 2018. Mike resigned around October, November of last year, and that's when they began the search for a CEO. And I was just recently appointed in April of this year.
At probably the most challenging possible time, start a new position. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then after that, we have a question from a student. So
yeah. So that's why when you said typical day, to be appointed president and CEO of an organization that has almost 150 employees in an economically challenged area at the height of a pandemic that no one really understands and probably still doesn't understand. And on top of that, George Floyd happened that got a lot of our employees in people were concerned. After that, not even about a month or so ago, had Hurricane Isaias knock out our power for 2 days. So the bakery was without power for 2 days. So I had pandemic, social unrest, natural disasters, all within a few months of each other. And PS, I was new. PS, I had an executive team that went from 7 to 2, including myself and the lead at the bakery. So we had 2 of us managing 150 people, and by design, because I had to do some reorganization, but it was a challenge. But what I learned from that, and I would say this to anybody, particularly leaders, you have to be the stable one in the room. You have to keep a clear head, and you always have to keep, and this is what I found as you look at how COVID exposed a lot of different things, is you have to look at your whole organization, holistically. And it wasn't just about just maintaining operations, but making sure people were safe. We had to literally retrofit both the bakery and the foundation for a COVID environment. So sanitizers, masks, the physical distancing. We have trainings that went from 40 people in a room to like 10, because we had to space everybody out in their little plexiglass stations. The instructor had to be far away. We attempted to do some virtual learning, but for our population, that's a bit of a challenge. So it was, changing we have a kitchen in all of our facilities, but, we can only have one person in at a time now. People have to take turns going in and out of the kitchen. There are signs to wash your hands everywhere you go. There are hand sanitizers. I've got 3 just right, within arm's distance of me, right in my own office. So it was learning how to pivot, and just being the stable one in the room is what I learned, because the employees were, and rightfully so, people were frustrated. They were fearful of, for their own lives, for their families. No one knew how to even deal with this. There was no playbook for how to deal with COVID. So we really had to learn as we went on. And what was key to it, it was being calm and being stable and giving direction to the employees and assuring them that, we have their safety in mind, and that even though we might look stable, we were going crazy on the inside. But we had to make sure that folks felt like they were being protected. And that was, first and foremost at the top of my mind. In the midst, I was also trying to recruit for an executive team, and a board at the same time. All of this is happening, and I'm just juggling all of these things. So it was not an easy time, but many of us feel we're made for times like this. So that's how I felt throughout the entire process.
So at this point, things have stabilized at the bakery and you've got the operations running regularly under both.
Yes. Yeah, so the bakery was deemed an essential business. So there was never a time when we stopped. So again, that adds to a lot of stress. Like, why do I have to come to work when, hotels and restaurants are closing? So we were deemed an essential business. Ben and Jerry's, Unilever were operating. So we had to continue to operate. One of the things we did do, which I'm very proud of, is we did institute what we call temporary pay. So folks got an additional increment of $2 an hour extra on their wages for every hour that they worked. And we can, it's not unlikely for folks to be working 6 days a week, more than 40 hours a week. So not only were they getting that incremental pay, they were getting time and a half. And plus we get bonuses to our bakers. So this was a very, rewarding time financially, but it was still a very trying time for folks. So the bakery never stopped. The foundation did go remote up until June. So everybody's now back in the office. But again, physical distance, wearing masks, washing your hands, we've closed our conference rooms. Everything is on Zooms and Teams. I say this even at a town hall we had last week. I am not a Zoom person. Microsoft Teams, I like to have people in a room. I like to be around people. So it's very hard for me to have this kind of distance from folks, but it's what the environment calls for now. So you just got to roll with it.
Yeah, it's been an incredible time and amazing that you were able to pull it all off to make it work and still deliver the product and also keep employees safe. We do have a question from Kaja, so I want to ask her to
if you could tell me where you're from too, just where you're from and what
Sure. Hi, my name is Khadija Shah. I am originally from Maryland, but I go to the Pleasantville campus. I am currently the student government president of the Pleasantville campus.
Right. Congrats.
So thank you. I'm a senior, and we are currently planning a social justice week that's happening at the end of October. What we do in these meetings is the beginning, like as an icebreaker, we always talk about everybody has to say an organization that they really like that's making a change in the community. And an individual is so interesting last week mentioned your bakery. I have never heard of this bakery. I don't know, I'm always roaming around Pleasantville. So I was like, I've never heard of this bakery. And he was telling us how great it is and how you guys have really, really changed the community and given opportunities to individuals that have never had them before. And it was just like, we were all amazed about this bakery that we've never been to. So that was really cool. And then now you're talking, I like the name of the company was familiar, and then I joined and it's a bakery. So that's really cool. My question though is you had a pivotal change to me, it seemed like in your career, going from the financial industry to kind of like nonprofit policy kind of change. And I wanted to know, were you at all worried that if you went into a different industry and you didn't like it, would it be difficult to get back into the financial industry if, you're going, I don't want to say it's slower, but nonprofits are different than, it's not a nonprofit, it's still for profit, right?
The bakery is for profit.
Right. So, but the structure is very different than like a financial industry. So was there any like worry or, how did you make the jump and why did you feel so comfortable doing it?
So what I would say is, look, there are going to be risks in anything. Full disclosure, when I started as an underwriter at Chubb, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no clue. I wanted a job after college. that was the goal. And as you go through life, and for me, and this is why I think it's always good to have great mentors that can just kind of help you through the process. I'm an independent kind of guy, and hopefully my son will learn better lessons. But, I learned as I went along. And, as I was an underwriter, I found out there was this whole thing called risk management. So I went into went to Lehman Brothers as an insurance analyst. Working there, you get exposed to other organizations and companies that are out there. I actually left Lehman Brothers at that time, the country was going through accounting scandals. So like there was some uncertainty about Wall Street and just the economy. There was just all kinds of uncertainty going on. And P.S. that was it was around my last time I think it was my last semester in business school. So that was 2000. We had the accounting scandals and all of that. And it was also right before 9/11. So when I left Lehman Brothers, we had just had 9/11. Everything was uncertain after that. And I got a call from a headhunter about this position at Pepsi, which brought me back to risk management, but it also exposed me to marketing and sales and all of that. And that's how I got to Pepsi. And I could go through all of this, but it was just, I was feeling my way around and just trying to find, but P.S., I was very good at all of my jobs. What I would say is I wasn't getting the satisfaction from my work that I wanted. And I love transformation. I love to see people transformed. I love to see things transformed. And Grayston just does all of that. I've got the business, I got the social, I got, everything happens at Grayston. So that was great. And I think I was just looking for that in all of my jobs, and I just wasn't getting it. But I learned, I don't regret any job that I had, even the quote unquote bad ones. So is there a risk? Yeah. There's a risk you can't go back. Yeah, there's a risk that you're going to quote unquote fail. I don't believe that. But every decision is going to have a consequence. But, to me, which is why I don't believe in bad experiences or bad jobs, like as long as you learn from it, it was good. And go for it. Because to me, at the end of the day, you don't want to get to the end of your life and just say, I wish I had done fill in the blank. I want to limit that as much as possible. So there's going to be a risk, and it might not work out, but talk to any inventor that's created anything that's of substance and ask them how many of those other projects that they worked on failed before they got to their, the gold mine. So I don't know if I would say I was worried. I mean, I was looking for something. So until I found it, that was going to worry me. Like I was more worried about not finding what I was looking for instead of the failure. I don't know if that answered the question.
It did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, can I ask this, all the students, how many of you have heard of Grayston prior to this? This is why I've got my job cut out for me.
Yeah, you got to do some marketing. For sure.
Yeah. We're actually in the latest issue of LOHUD, so if you, I can put it in the chat if you want.
So you have some experience in industry and then also in government. How do those intersect to get you where you are today?
Oh, I think I entered into government around the time that I was at Pepsi. So I started Pepsi 2001. And I really just got in as part of, at the time my village was going through a comprehensive plan review. It's basically just a roadmap for what you want your municipality to look like. So they were appointing people to this committee, and I put my hand up because, as you can see, I don't like to sit around and do nothing all the time. I think I'm happier when I'm juggling 5,000 things. So in addition to working at Pepsi, I also wanted to be involved in community stuff. So I signed up for this comprehensive review committee. At that time, the village of Portchester was being sued under the Civil Rights Act. That's a whole nother story altogether. But the federal government had stopped our village elections for about 3 years. So at that time, whatever village board was in place was frozen because we didn't have elections for 3 years, and 2 of the trustees resigned. So I'm on this committee at the time when all of these folks are resigning from this board, which created an issue for the board because it was a 7-member board, so they got down to 5 people. So anytime someone's not there, it's a quorum issue. So the village asked residents if they wanted to be a trustee So at the time I'm on this committee, getting exposed to village stuff. The village is now looking for trustees to be on this board. I thought, at that time I was single, I didn't have anybody to worry about but myself. I thought I could do it. So I was appointed in 2000, it had to be 2006, 2007 to the village board. It was me and another gentleman, Greg Adams. And we actually became the first African Americans appointed to the board at that time. I served what was essentially a full term because we didn't have elections. And it wasn't until 2010 that the federal government finally released us of this order and we had elections again. So I was elected in my own right in 2010 and then became the first elected trustee to that position. And the following year was appointed deputy mayor. First, obviously, African-American to be deputy mayor. At that time, I left Pepsi. And my friend who was elected county executive at the time asked me to join his administration as a senior advisor. So I did that for 4 years before becoming deputy commissioner of social services. So it's been a journey, but like I said, I'm so proud of it. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Well, thank you. It's very, very interesting how you pivoted in your career so many times to do different types of things. I now want to open up questions from the students. If anybody has anything you'd like to ask or want to know more about.
I can see that Megan raised her hand.
Oh, Megan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Please go ahead and introduce yourself and ask your question.
Where are you from, Megan?
I'm from the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
I am a freshman at Pace. I am currently majoring in psychology, but I have a lot of interest in the entertainment management world and that type of industry. So at Pace, my professors are constantly telling me that learning doesn't really stop at college. So I was wondering, what type of continual education are you a part of? Forums or anything that kind of contributed to your ideas or your innovations? I guess I was just wondering.
Yeah, so I am an avid reader of like think tank materials. I just think, particularly as a CEO, you can't, or any manager or leader, you really always have to be at least knowledgeable in almost every field. Like even now, I have to understand mental health. I have to understand science. I have to understand government and politics. Obviously the business cycles, tax policy, regulation. So we touch so many different areas, whether it's manufacturing, workforce development, community wellness. We touch in so many different fields. So I really have to be knowledgeable in a lot of things. So I do read an awful lot. My favorite think tanks are Brookings and AEI. So I read a lot of their work because it touches on a lot of different things that we deal with here at Grayston. And a lot of, you can see my books behind me. You should see my library at home. I like to read a lot about business and politics and government and just some thought leaders in the field of stakeholder capitalism. There's a group we're a part of at Greyston called Conscious Capitalism. They have a national chapter as well as a local chapter. I'm very involved in our local county business organization called the Westchester Business Council. We also are a member of the Westchester County Association, which is another trade organization. And it's really being connected to other folks throughout my industry, both nonprofit as well as for-profit. I can't say enough about connections and people that you meet, whether it's at Pace or in the job market. You just literally, you never know. That's how I came here. You never know who you're talking to. So it's having those kind of connections and just being a constant learner is what I would say. That answers the question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.
Is any part of your organization working to try to bring this to more places? Because it sounds so transformational and so important to have sort of B corporations that can also give back to the community as you do.
Yeah, so one of my goals, that's why I wanted to know how many of you guys have heard of Grayston, is I don't want us to be a secret. And for too long, we've been a secret. And I even said that when I was interviewing here the first time, that I'm a deputy commissioner of social services handling employment, and I had no idea about this whole open hiring thing. That's a shame on us. So since I became CEO, it's almost been weekly, being on CNBC Squawk Box, talking to Forbes. I'll send you guys all the marketing things that we've done, just getting the name out there. But one of the strategic decisions we made 2 years ago was to launch the Center for Open Hiring. And the whole idea is to inspire other companies to do what we do. So the Body Shop just last year introduced open hiring at their distribution centers in Raleigh, North Carolina, and had a lot of success, almost 2/3 cut in their turnover rates. Productivity went up 13%. And we're very pleased to announce, I think there'll be something coming out shortly, they're going to release open hiring in their retail operations in North America and Canada. So open hiring will be happening there. Giant Eagle, a grocery store chain in Pittsburgh, did open hiring for their warehouses in that part of the country. We have a custodial services company called CleanCraft in Rochester, New York, that's going to be doing open hiring. And there's also just came on board, Arbonne. I don't know if you folks know of that company, but it's a consumer products company similar to an Avon. They're going to be doing open hiring. They just started. And one of our Ben & Jerry's partners, Rhino Foods, that makes the cookie dough, they have about 60% of the cookie dough market, they're doing open hiring. So our goal is to see as many companies doing this and opening opportunities to folks that have traditionally been excluded from the job market. This is, the ready to work population, but for whatever reason, particularly like, the formerly incarcerated, they want to work but just can't get jobs. There is a loss to society when we don't hire them. So there's public assistance costs, corrections costs, just opportunity costs that are lost. Families suffer, because a lot of these folks are either single moms or dads trying to support the single mom, but they don't have an income. So, at our facility, the bakery, I was shocked. We have about 30% of our bakers are women. And that's, to me, that is we're very proud of that number, because if you think about a bakery, it's 12 hours, very, tough conditions. You're lifting 50-pound bags of flour and sugar, working long hours, you're going hard, and 30% of our staff are women. So we're very proud of that. But when you hire that person, you've now given them hope. You've now given them an income, but you've also impacted that family. You've also impacted the community that they live in. So there is this ripple effect that happens. We just completed a study that showed between the folks we hire at the bakery and the folks we place and we train and place in jobs here at the foundation, it's an annual benefit of about $12 million a year that little Grayston is providing to Southwest Yonkers. And that doesn't include any kind of money multiplier. But think about that, $12 million when you look at all the public savings, the income that's generated from our bakers, who, by the way, make 15% above the workers in their field, and they get bonuses, and it's a livable wage that they get. That's huge. But what if we had more companies, 10, 100, 1,000, doing what Grayston does? How many more opportunities of talent could we unlock if other folks did open hiring? So we are excited about the companies that I talked about, but we need many more. And we need more people talking about Grayston. We need more people, and I'm doing it now. We've gotten a lot of press. I mentioned CNBC, Squawk Box, and Yahoo Finance. All this is online and on our website, by the way. Forbes magazine, LoHUD, Journal News, USA Today just did a nice article, nice spread. Make sure I put that in the chat box before I leave. But we need more people talking about this, and I am the one company that probably does not want to be unique. I want other companies to do what we do, and you don't have to do it in the same way. You don't have to make your entire organization open hiring. You can make your front desk person your open hire. You can make your landscaper, your maintenance person, whoever it might be. But open hiring lends itself well to entry-level jobs that you can learn on the job. So, and then have a career path to something else as you move forward. So, to me, this is an exciting time. I was excited before COVID. I'm even more excited after COVID because, like I said in the beginning, Grayston was created for times like this. So it's just great to be a part of this organization.
If anybody has any other questions, add them to the chat and then I can call on you, or if you can raise your hand,
I believe Amaya has a question.
please go ahead.
Yes. Hello, sir.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Could you tell us something about your experience at the Lubin School of Business and how that helped you in your future endeavors?
Yeah, I was saying to the team earlier, what Lubin really taught me was just how to be flexible. Just so you know how I came to Lubin, I did not want to stop working. So I wanted to continue working at Chubb as an underwriter and not do something full time. My branch manager at Chubb at the time, Ed Fernandez, he was a Lubin executive MBA graduate. So I had spoken to him about Lubin and what I wanted to do, and he had encouraged me. And so I think I applied over the weekend in the fall of, like, it was 1998 or whenever. And that's when I got in. And it was a great experience. There are people that I still talk to now. I might have some regrets in the fact that, maybe, what would it have been like if I was full-time and I could spend all my time at the school and being a part of student life. I mean, that's always something in the back of my mind. But my North Star was getting an MBA and continuing to work. And I was a total nut job that did classes from January through December. So I finished like in 2.5 years or whatever it was. It was something crazy. It was essentially an executive MBA program at the end of the day, but that's what I wanted to do. But I loved the experience. I met some great people. I was talking to the team about professors that I loved in my investment analysis class and then my European business strategy class. And like I said, those are folks that I still talk to this day. But it was just a great experience. It taught me a lot about myself, and just in terms of, I have to be more flexible. I have to be open to the challenges, and to the earlier question that Khadijah asked, it's like, just got to take some risk. And you might get your butt kicked, but business has a way of teaching you great lessons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think there's another question.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good
How are
afternoon,
you?
Joe.
How are you, Ajay?
I'm doing great. So I'm originally from Boston. I currently live in Long Island. I have an extensive career in education, publishing, and entrepreneurship.
Okay.
It's great to see another guy about my age doing what you're doing. All right.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. So I have experience with owning my own business with a diverse workforce. So my question is more from a practical daily standpoint. Could you please give me some insight into how your company looks from an HR standpoint? Like, how do you make it work? My workforce was very diverse and we had some difficulty with it. And I'm sure you probably see a lot of benefit, but a lot of difficulties with having the open door policy. So how does that look like? What does that look like from an HR standpoint? What policies are in place in order to help you guys flourish and thrive?
Yeah, I love that question. And it's a question we get a lot. So I like to say that open hiring does not equal no standards. What we get rid of is the background checks, the interviews, and resumes, all of that. You just simply literally, it's a one pager. You put your name, address, email, other contact information, phone number, and there's a description of what the job is like, and that's it. And when you get the call, that's your first day on the job. We don't focus a lot of costs on keeping people out. We like to use those same resources to keep folks in. So that's where our investment goes. From an HR standpoint, from that point on, we're just like any other manufacturer. So, we have cameras, we have policies and procedures. We actually have an accountability system. It's a point system. So the goal is to not have too many points. So it's, wearing a hairnet, not wearing jewelry, adhering to all of our goods manufacturing practices, showing up, taking instruction, meeting your production goals. All the other accountability practices that you would have in any other job still hold. We do not tolerate violence or any kind of insubordination, just as you would at any other job. We have all of the other HR procedures, whether it's, sexual harassment, violence, lateness, calling in, all of those still apply. To the extent you can't adhere to those, then we'll have to part our ways. But what we do like to say is, I don't judge you on the way in. I'm not going to judge you on the way out. When you can get it together, put your name back on the list and you can come back. But for now, I need to supply brownies for Ben & Jerry's Unilever and Whole Foods and the people that order online. We still have a product that has to get out the door, and it has to get out the door in the best way. So accountability is baked in, pardon the pun, in terms of what we do. And from that standpoint, it is no different. Where it is different is how we bring folks in. And we also, because we recognized, I think what you're probably getting to is, when you're hiring people that might be formerly incarcerated or may not have the experience, the work experience, little to no work experience.
I was actually, let me clarify.
Mm-hmm.
You make great points, but I was actually referring to scheduling and
Mm-hmm.
Hourly scheduling and healthcare. Are they on Medicaid? Are they working only part-time with no insurance?
No. Yeah.
What's some of the background details behind doing this? Because I'm sure you're not bringing in people and telling them, look, we need you for 40 to 50 hours this week, and you got to be here, or you can't come back, and you got to behave. Not everybody wants to work like that. I'm sure you have some guys who come in for 4 hours a week, or 10 hours a week, or 20 hours a week, or women, guys or women. And so, how does that look in terms of scheduling people and healthcare and all the other details like taxes and stuff like that go with scheduling and having so many people from different backgrounds come in and just still put out great product?
Yeah. So the normal work week, which it hasn't been normal in quite some time, but the normal work week is about 48 hours. And usually it's 12-hour shifts. So they don't work Monday. Normally they wouldn't work Monday through Friday. It'd be like Monday through Thursday. But lately we've been going, we've been going, 5 days, 6 days. So they get that overtime. You qualify for health insurance, and we pay the lion's share of that on day one. You also get 401k 90 days after that. On average, and to your Medicaid question, most of our folks would not qualify because on average, our bakers earn upwards $45,000-46,000 a year. And this is with all their wages, overtime, production bonuses, other bonus. We gave folks COVID bonuses because, to your point, some folks they couldn't go past 48 hours. So, the folks that went that extra mile, they got another bonus. So folks, it's a very good system. Is it perfect? No, of course not. But scheduling was a big issue for us during COVID because we stopped hiring. So that's why we instituted the COVID bonuses, because we needed folks to come in because we just couldn't hire any more people for the obvious reasons. So folks got healthcare, and again, we pay the lion's share, but folks get paid a very decent, compensation given our size.
Okay, thank you. That was good. I appreciate it.
And thankfully, they don't qualify for public assistance because they're making good money.
They're making good money, right? You have
Sounds
a good
great.
relationship, so thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Very physically demanding role, so hard for people to do 48 hours. I think I'd have trouble. That they can. So can you tell us a little bit more about the B Corporation and how this came to be the first B Corporation in New York City, and then maybe some B Corporations that you admire or that you look toward?
Yeah, I have to mention the obvious, Ben & Jerry's, Unilever, they're probably the poster children, and you don't have to agree with everything that they say, but they are the poster children for, activism. All of their products have some type of a focus on an issue. So Justice Remix, the ice cream that we're in is focused on criminal justice. And then Netflix and Chill is just focused on, being a couch potato, not really political, but they just have this very irreverent way of approaching issues, whether it's a political issue or just life in general. So they're a great organization to work with, by the way. Rhino Foods is another one that I would mention as a great B Corp to work with. They provide the cookie dough inclusions in ice cream and other brands. They've totally embraced open hiring, which we want to see more of that. What we'd love to see, getting to your question about the B Corps, since we were all mission-minded organizations, we'd love to create an employment ecosystem where, wouldn't it be great, you do 2 or 3 years at Grayston, and then you can move to another B Corp where you do something else that has open hiring and move up the ladder. Because at the end of the day, I actually don't want you to stay here. If that's your path, and we believe in path making, well, go where you are, where you feel you need to be. But I would love it if we start with the premise that these folks wouldn't be working, but for Grayston, I would love it if you do your 2 years, get your experience, do a good job, and you say, Joe, you know what, I want to go work at PepsiCo Gas in Mount Vernon. Go for it. And we have a guy who was 26 years in prison, worked at our bakery a few years, and he went to PepsiCo Gas, and he's been there now for 6 years, doing very well. Like, I want to see more stories like that, creating this ecosystem of other mission-minded companies that want to give these folks a chance. Because a lot of folks that are, 7 million that are, coming out of prison, where are they going to go? And then what is the cost to society when we don't provide them with opportunities? And there's so many costs, the financial costs, the social costs. That's what B Corp's conscious capitalism, stakeholder capitalism, it's all about. Like, how can we operate in a way, and I think people misunderstand it. And I'm a total capitalist. Like, you can still make a profit and you can still do good. It's not one for the other. The two can happen at the same time. It's just really common sense. Take care of your employees, be fair to your vendors, and invest in the communities that you're in while you're making a profit, while you're growing your business and growing revenue. That's just common. You can call it stakeholder capitalism. You can call it shareholder primacy. At the end of the day, you want to operate in a way that, one, you can survive the long term. Because if I'm doing things that are foolish, I'm not going to be around to even make a profit. Forget all the social stuff. You have to have a long-term view in mind. And that's really what the B Corp movement's all about. It's like, what's the long-term impact of all the things that we're doing? What's the long-term impact? What changes do we need to make as a society and as a business to address some of the issues that society is going through? Because at the end of the day, if people are sick or they're dying, nobody's buying ice cream. Nobody's buying Pepsi products. Nobody's going to be buying housing. So we have to do something in a way that uplifts society while at the same time creating job opportunities and investing in the places that we are in. So that's why we're a part of the B Corp community. To me, that embodies everything that our founder was about, was going back to that one body. It's like, if somebody else is suffering, we're all suffering. How do we solve it? And some people want to say, like, I'm not saying CEOs need to solve every social issue, but you should ask yourself, what can my business do in the context that I find myself in?
Why is it that so few CEOs feel that this is their responsibility? It seems so obvious and yet so hard to find.
It's a myopic view. I think it was one of the authors of my college economics textbooks, Mankiw. He said, business leaders and CEOs don't have the capability to solve social problems because they need to be focused on the business and they need to be focused on profit. I agree that they need to be focused on profit. But at the end of the day, you all are undergrads and grads. Business leaders are problem solvers. So if you are that smart to run an organization and to whatever that organization might be and to deliver quarterly earnings or however you want to focus on your earnings, you should be able to understand, or at least get the team in place to understand, what else can we do. And Indra Nooyi, who I always like to use as former CEO of PepsiCo, she started looking at, the impact of Pepsi's operations on water in some of the places where they operate, plastic, all of these different things. These are things you probably wouldn't have to think about until you see all the other effects that, landfills, pollution, polluted water. All of these things have that your company might be contributing to, but your company could also be the problem solver for all of those issues. So as I'm talking about this, you can see it's pretty complex. That's why people don't want to talk about it, because it's complex, and you have to really do something different than what you probably were, accustomed to. It's easier to have a myopic view. I should only be focused on profit, but if I'm only focused on profit, I'm focused on the long term, and the long term has challenges. And those challenges, I have to find, where I can address them. And, we do it through employment. That's our contribution to the discussion. And we also feel that by starting with that one job, you're solving a host of other issues. If you look at your employee base on a more holistic basis and not just as human capital or inputs for a product.
So what would you recommend we've got some undergraduate students here and we've got some graduate students, and maybe the recommendation is different, but what would you recommend that they focus on now as they're finishing up their educations and moving out into the working world?
Oh boy. To me, it's different now, because even when I was looking at colleges, so forget graduate school, but even looking at colleges, I think the focus was more on functions. So you wanted to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a banker. Now it's people need thinkers and, problem solvers. There's no industry for that. It's just business now. You could be a young kid in your parents' garage and start Facebook. People just need people that can solve problems and really think through some of the issues and come up with really effective and compelling strategies and business models to solve an issue. So Facebook was getting folks connected, Amazon, getting products to people without even leaving your house. Whole Foods, clean products, clean foods, focused on, wellness. There is a niche market, as we're finding out, for almost anything. TikTok, it's like everybody has a consumer out there. It's just a matter of thinking through, what skills do I have? What are the gaps in society that I see? And what's the problem to solve it? To me, it's just really almost just put aside what you want to be and just really be learners and be flexible and be willing to pivot if you have to, because as you can see, things will literally change on the dime in this environment, and you've got to be prepared for that. And some of these folks that have lost their jobs, the 10 or the 20 million that have come back, that have not come back, they got to figure out something else to do. So we're thinking about that here as we train folks, like how can I train them in essential work? I hate that term, essential workers, but that's the environment that we're in now. People are looking for essential laborers. How can we train folks to get into that? So it's just constantly being able to flex and to learn and to be thinkers and just really push yourself to be strategic thinkers, and to really look at what can be your contribution to society. So it's not so much the function now as it was when I was growing up. It's really now, how do I think about issues? It's a very ambiguous answer to your question, but
I think it was a good answer. Are you at all worried about automation and what that means for your company and for other companies and employment?
It is a concern, because of the folks that could be impacted by that. That's why I think it's so critical, even for the low income, it's to how do we teach folks how to, because even now we're going through that, because a lot of our folks don't have access to the internet or have computers at home or may not even be skilled in just, technology. If you can think about that, it's a concern for me. We have to teach folks STEM. We have to teach folks to get them comfortable. Even our own clients, we're trying to get them comfortable with using a computer and going online. If you have your phone, you should be able to do some of these other things on the computer. So it's really getting folks, comfortable with this new virtual environment, which can leave out a good portion of our population. So we really have to think about that. And automation is one of those things that I think could have a negative impact on our particular population. I think on the economy as a whole, it is quote unquote a good thing, but there are folks who will be left out of that if they are not properly trained. So that's where the strategy for workforce development has to be more focused on the lower end of the employment spectrum. I'm all for educating folks in middle skill jobs, and I'm all for folks like yourselves, going off and getting, more education, but we can't forget about the folks on the lower end of the spectrum, and there has to be investments made for them so that, as we move to a more automated virtual environment, that our folks can also get jobs and be a part of society that way.
Thanks. We're coming toward the end of our session. Does anybody else have any other questions to ask Mr. Kenner today? Anybody starting to get hungry for some ice cream?
See, normally I would have brought brownies to an event like this, but.
Welcome them. Now we'll have to get our own. Well, it was really eye-opening to hear your story and hear about your company. One of my students is on the Zoom session here, and we take on clients in social media class. So maybe we can help you at some point in the future do some social media marketing.
Oh, that would be great.
Get you guys known, because it's such a wonderful organization and it does so many wonderful and delicious things. And maybe at some point we could have you back.
As you say that, I'm sending you the Low HUD article right now in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you. So again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed meeting you. Thank
Same
you
here.
to all the students who joined us as well. And we hope to see you in the future.
Absolutely.
And maybe we could come visit the bakery at some point, which would be fun as well.
That would be great. We've got some protocols in place, obviously, for visitors, but hopefully at some point we can have a crowd come to the bakery.
Yeah, we might have to wait.
But if you go to the Low HUD article, you could see some videos from our bakers and other folks that we work with that are doing some good stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the time and hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you for having me, and all the best to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.